I knew he was scared, and he, typical change coming, the anxiety that you see that your kids exhibit when they're getting ready to be faced with something big like that. So I knew he was a little afraid. So I'd heard this Christian song on the radio, and it was like bedtime. And I went into his room and I said, Stephan, I said, you got to hear this song that I just heard. It's going to encourage you. And when I walked in his room and I said that, he was sitting at his desk, and I had to like go past his bed to get to his desk. And he had this look like, what are you doing in my room? And because I was so like, just like taken back by his, I said, what's going on? So I went next to him to put my little, it was the MP3 player on the desk so he could hear it. And he had one of my husband's rifles on the floor in front of him. And I just felt like, what is going on?
Was that the first time?
That's the first time. And I said, what are you doing with this rifle? And he just started crying. And I said, what are you doing with this rifle? And he said, I was going to wait till you and Dad went to bed and I was going to kill myself. And I said, oh my God, went and got my husband. I said, we need to go and get you some help, like immediately. So I called his therapist, and he said, I'll meet you guys at the hospital. And they admitted him. That was the first time. But it has never shifted from all the attempts he's made to not ever seeing it coming. And what I've learned this last year, which the last attempt he's made was Mother's Day last year. And we were all at the house waiting for him to come get off of work and come and have dinner. Him and his sister had planned the whole weekend, planned the dinner, the menu, everything. So we're waiting for him to get off of work. And we start calling him like, okay, we knew he got off at 7. We were going to have dinner at 7:30, and he wasn't answering his phone. And probably an hour into trying to reach him and nobody was able to reach him, we just all got scared because this was the 5th attempt. And we went over to his apartment and couldn't get in. We just knew he was in there dead. We just all, through the PTSD that we have suffered as a family dealing with this, we just knew he was dead. But we didn't even see that coming because he had everything he had done to plan a beautiful weekend. He had bought me this beautiful shirt and had like somebody put all the things on it about how great his mom was. And I'm like, how could you give me a t-shirt to wear to say how great of a mother I am, and then tonight I'm going to find out you killed yourself? Like, that's like the disconnect from somebody that's suffering. But we've never seen the signs of him really wanting to check out. We know when he's depressed. We know when he's not feeling at his best, but he hides it so well. And what I've learned what I've learned now in this last year is that it's a process. After this last time, we vowed as a family to do therapy together because he's going, but we don't know what he's talking about. We don't know what he's sharing. We don't know how we're affecting what he's dealing with. Or, the first thing I could tell you as a mother, as a parent, me and my husband were like, what are we doing wrong? And we've learned that it's not anything that we're doing wrong. You have to learn how to support that person. We have a strong spiritual belief, and a spiritual foundation as a family. He does. We do. And sometimes that's not enough.
What kind of strain is that on your marriage?
I'm blessed. It's a strain. It is absolutely, because I've seen my husband cry and say, I feel so helpless. As a parent, when you are blessed with, and we are blessed as a family to be able to provide every resource he needs, and it's still not enough. Like when you can write a check, you can network, you can get the best doctors,
right.
You can do all of that.
And it's still not enough.
And, you hear so many stories. Kids are coming from broken homes. They've gone through trauma. We don't check any of those boxes. And it's still not enough. You feel like, whoa, what else can I do? And so my husband has his quiet moments where he's feeling like, I don't know how to help him. I don't know how to reach him. And that mama bear comes out of me where, we're not going to just not do nothing.
Right.
We're not going to,
We're going to find something
we're going
to
to
do.
fight. We're going to, we're going to do what we have to do to make sure that, this kid survives. As spouses, we handle it differently.
Right.
You handle stress differently. My husband is more reserved, more quiet. He's more of an introvert. He doesn't talk a lot about it. He doesn't want to talk a lot. He doesn't know how to handle it. This is his namesake. This is his junior. And then I'm over here, let's talk about it. I want to,
Right.
I
need to talk.
I need to talk. So therapy has helped us
Now,
a
what about
lot.
your daughter? How has she internalized all of this trauma?
We've learned in this last year, she has suffered the most. They're a year apart, and I'm going to try not to cry. She has suffered the most because she has always been the one she's overachieved. Has really worked hard at trying to not ever be a problem. And when she's gone through things and needed us, she's been really quiet about it because
She knows.
she doesn't want us to have to suffer anything else on our plate. But it's been a blessing in disguise because we've learned that we've all been suffering and we're going through post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's even though it's been hard to accept that, it's been a part of all of our healing as a family because we decided we would do therapy together. In that therapy, we learned as a family, even my son, through his suffering, he has learned that we've all suffered along with him. And that this burden that he felt that he has been carrying with this depression and anxiety, that it's been just his burden to carry. He now realizes that we're all helping to carry that load, and we've suffered with him and we're carrying the same load. And he has been able to see how his sister has suffered. And I mean, my daughter, we took her to Atlanta on the weekend. She's going to medical school. And her whole point, her undergrad, she got an undergrad in psychology.
To try to help
her brother. Her senior projects in her undergrad was around helping her brother, anxiety, depression. She is now going to medical school
to help her brother.
And it's just like it's been a family effort to try to keep this young man alive his whole life. And what we've learned in therapy the last year is that all we can do is support him and love him.
Right.
All we can do is let him know that we're there for him. All we can do is try to understand what he's going through, manage the boundaries, because the boundaries, I'm telling you, that's the muddy part. When you know your child is suffering, I've been an advocate for therapy, for speaking out about depression, anxiety, all the effects of it. I've always talked about it. I've never hid it.
Why do you think that is? Because most Black people, when there's mental illness in the family, somebody's suffering, we never really talk about it.
Because I knew if I didn't say anything, I was giving the enemy full reign to continue his attempts to destroy my son. And as a Christian, I was not going to not say anything. And it also really, it bothered me that the church and my Christian family has always been it's a stigma around it. It's so taboo to talk about it. And I'm like, I'm going to give this a voice, because I think if I do, I will annihilate the attacks of what the enemy's trying to do to my child.
And then from the outside looking in, people look at your family and they see this picture of family,
Right.
and but not mental illness.
No, I've heard my hairstylist. I mean, you're always talking about your son being depressed. Is he gay? Is it something? I'm like, he's suffering from depression. Now, if he is, that's one subject. That's a different subject.
Right.
But my son is suffering from depression. I've
People
heard
can't just
they
take
can't just take it for what it is. It has to be something else
underlying.
wrong. He suffered trauma. What's going on at home? People look at you
Right.
weird, like, okay, what's going on if your child
What did you do?
Right, what did you do? Your child is suffering so much, and he's tried so many times to kill himself. Something must be wrong in the family. You guys are hiding something. It has to be something in the Black community other than it's just mental illness. And I've learned and I've witnessed in my own life, in my own family, I've heard rumors and things that have been covered up for years in the family. We don't talk about what it really is. And it's killing people. We have our children, our Black sons, our daughters taking their lives because we won't acknowledge it. We won't even talk about it. I have been in the room with family. We had a family reunion a few years ago. This was recently after one of my son's attempts. I want to say it was his third attempt to kill himself, where he had driven his car off an overpass on the highway in Houston. And he survived it. And we had a family reunion for the 4th of July. He was there.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
My husband and I were on vacation, and we were in another country, and I got a phone call. My son, he got married. He was married, and it started off beautiful, but it became a very toxic marriage. And we knew he and his wife were having problems, and they were fighting a lot, arguing a lot. My husband and I were on vacation, and we got a phone call from his wife that he was in the hospital and that he had tried to kill himself. And we had to rush back from our vacation. And when we got here, we didn't know the details until we got here that he had drove his car off an overpass. And when I found out what overpass it was and how high it was,
for all intents and purposes, he should have died.
He should have died. And we got to the hospital, and he had some bruises and stuff, but no broken bones. I thank God every day how he's made him so big and bulky, and because the things that he's done to himself, most people would have died from. The attempts that he's made with the amount of medication he's put into his body. And one time he tried, and he was in a coma for 3 days and missing. And we found the suicide note 3 days after he had been missing. And he woke up from a coma that he was in from taking all of his antidepressants, his anti-anxiety medicine. And he woke up. He woke up. God woke him up. And when he woke up, he was so disappointed that he wasn't dead. And the things that he's done is enough to drive any parent completely out of their mind. And I just say every time, God, thank you. You are sustaining him. You are keeping him. And I truly believe, and I'm at a point now, because he's tried to do it so many times and God has saved him. I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'm more focused on the purpose that God has for him than the purpose that the enemy has.
Right.
And that's what keeps me fueled with making sure that we do what we can, making sure that he knows we're there and we love him, making sure that he feels like he's surrounded with the support he needs and the love that he needs. Because if I didn't focus on what the purpose God has for him, I would lose my mind.
Absolutely.
Worrying about him.
Do you think that he is grievously tormented all the time?
He will tell you he is. He will tell you that he's been in such a state of hopelessness, which is that place that I think is the ultimate place that a person that is suffering gets, where they feel like, okay, whatever's on the other side of this
It's got to be better.
endless hopelessness is better than this. And he is amazing at telling you what he's going through. The thousands of dollars we've spent on therapy has really allowed him to be able to express in very detail how he's feeling, what he thinks, how he processes his thoughts, and he will tell you that it's just some days I feel so hopeless that it's got to be something better than this. And I've
How do you answer? How do you respond when he says that?
right now we have so much history on what he's been through and what God has brought him through that I try to get him to focus on that.
Does he believe God for himself,
He,
or does he know your God?
he is at a point now in the last year, since this last attempt on last Mother's Day and a year of therapy with the family, that he knows that the God that he serves, the God that he has a relationship with, has helped him and has provided for him, has protected him. He knows now. I would say before this last year of intense family therapy, and we've done therapy every week, every Tuesday night for the last year, he has found his own personal path with God to understand that God has been carrying him and protecting him. Before that, it was God loves you. He's got so much in store for you.
Right. But he couldn't see
A
that.
person that is hopelessly depressed
Right.
cannot connect spiritually with anything.
Right.
I mean, and that's where the enemy wants his mind, where he feels completely disconnected from any and everything. From, we are a strong, close family. It's just the four of us, but we are so close, and we've done nothing but shower him and his sister with love. But when you're feeling down, depressed, hopeless, you don't feel the love. You don't see a future. You don't see hope for the future. When, he has felt his entire life, and he will tell, his own story one day, and he's getting closer and closer to it. He has felt his whole life from being diagnosed at 6 years old in first grade that the world has been against him. Because we put such a stigma on mental illness, then he has been made to feel like something has been wrong with him his whole life.
Since 6 years old.
Yep. And he has seen people discriminate against him because he has had special needs. He's had special attention. He has felt it his whole life. And he will tell you that I feel like I've had to fight for people to understand what I'm going through. His friends, man, ain't nothing wrong with you, man. Come on, dude,
You got everything.
And so right now he's on an awakening journey for himself to connect with this God that has spared him, who has protected him, who has carried him through every attempt. And he is closer now with God than I've ever seen him. And it's on his own terms. And it's not what we would want.
Right. But the God of his understanding.
Right.
And so you go through all of this for some really his whole life, basically. And your family, you're a mother, but you also have a mother. How does your mother process what her daughter is going through with her grandson?
She's a prayer warrior. She's a prayer warrior. She know the power of God. My mom has already dealt with her own battles of depression and not wanting to live. She's been through things in her life, and I think she can understand more than I could ever understand what the feeling of depression is. And
So
she
she's
know how to
really
pray.
connected to
Right.
what your son is experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. She has the compassion and the empathy that's needed. And I've learned through the years that people that don't understand depression and what we've gone through, they lack a lot of empathy. They may have the compassion,
Right.
but they lack the empathy and that real empathy that it takes to understand that walk.
How
And
have
my
you,
mother understands it from that standpoint.
she understands it from an intrinsic way
Right,
because she's
right,
experienced
right.
it and she knows God. But is there ever a time on this journey that you're angry with God, that you say, God, why have you allowed this?
I have never. I will not let myself get there. I remember the third attempt. He tried to take his life when he was in a coma for 3 days and he was missing. And at this point, he was like around 26 years old, and he would just come. He was in his own apartment, but he would come to the house and hang out. He had his own room, and that particular time when he went missing, it was that point in being a parent where you have to let your child be an adult and not call him every day,
Right.
But we kind of have this thing between my husband. Have you heard from him? How many days has it been? So it had been 3 days, and I said, have you heard from Stephan? And he said, I haven't heard from him. And I started calling his cell phone, and it rang in my house. And when it rang in the house, I immediately, like, my heart sunk. And my husband was at work. It was the evening time, and I said, "Oh my God, we haven't seen him in 2 days. So he left his phone here 2 days ago." And we went in the garage and saw that, I'm like, is he in the garage? Because I immediately knew something was wrong. And I started going through his stuff because he had a work truck, but he had left his car at the house. I started going through his stuff and found a suicide note and called the cops. And I said, my son's missing. He left a suicide note. I think it's been, I think by now it's been 3 days since we've seen him or talked to him. And he said, well, because of his age, we can't do anything. And that Saturday, this was Wednesday, actually that night, I wanted to get so mad at God because it's like that scenario where you think this is not going to turn out well. Like, out of everything that we've been through and the attempts he's made, this time he's going to be successful. And I immediately wanted to just fight with God. And I just started crying out to God and I said, God, dispatch every angel that you have wherever he is to watch over him and protect him, because this is too much. Like, this is too much for me. I was screaming to God for, God, just give me what I need to get through this, because it was a moment where I had to pray, but I didn't have any belief that he was going to be alive.
Really?
Yep. So, but at that point, I'm like, God, I can't get mad at you, because if I get mad at you, it's a wrap for me. So I have never gotten mad at God. I say, God, you gave him to me.
Right.
You obviously have equipped me. And my husband to be able to deal with this. You obviously have equipped us. I've done a lot of reading. I've seen other moms that have lost their kids. I've seen them on TV. You see them everywhere.
Right.
It's everywhere. The kids are getting younger and younger. And I've come to this understanding from reading other articles, seeing other interviews from moms that have lost their sons or their kids from suicide, that at some point you have to realize that if a person is going through so much that they feel like they can't take it anymore, that you have to respect their decision. And that's crazy, right? As a mom,
I don't know if you could ever relent and say,
but you do.
you do.
You do. You may be mad. You may be hurt. It may destroy you. But you have to accept the decision that that person is going through so much that their choice is that they don't want to go through it anymore. That's a big pill to swallow. But I have accepted that.
You have.
I have. That I don't want to see my son suffering. I don't want to see anybody suffering, right? We don't. Even if it's not mental illness,
Right.
if it's cancer, if it's something that's really destroying, you don't want to see that person suffer. I would never want to lose my son.
Right. But you know that it's beyond your control.
It is absolutely beyond my control.
You can't impose your want on his will.
Right. Right.
No matter how much you want him to be here.
Right.
So how does he seem like now?
Today he's healthy. He's happy. He's successful. He is in a better place than he's ever been.
Does that scare you?
No, it doesn't, because I see him, he's woke. He's woke about his journey. He knows that he is going to struggle with depression. He knows that he has to find a healthy balance. He kind of tickles us now because he's like, no drama. I know I can't handle drama, so I
stay away from it.
I stay away from it. Even if it's me fussing. He's like, okay, Mom, I feel my anxiety starting, so like I gotta tune you
home.
out. He's like, this is what he says. He says, Mom, I gotta wipe my own butt right now. Like I can't let you stress me out worrying about me, because I do. I have a sense of it's PTSD. It really is.
And so what do therapists say? Because we just had Dr. Bessel van der Kolk on, and his book is entitled The Body Keeps the Score. And, the body hangs on to the trauma
sure
of
does.
5 times. So how do you take care of yourself without losing yourself while trying to save your son?
I have a lot of faith. I pray. I have a really good relationship with God. I meditate. I find time to have, I find time to create peace within myself about it. I try not to worry about him.
Really?
I do. I try not to worry about him. My husband and I, we've been together so long. We have a really good balance where, it's just like he won't even say, well, you haven't heard from Stephan. He'll just, if I haven't talked about him, if I haven't talked about Masia, he just picks up the phone and call him, because he knows that that's going to bring us both some peace just to hear from him. But I pray a lot. I trust God, and I trust his plan for his life.
When did you know that you would share this publicly? Not just here, but just talk about it and tell people what your family has endured for all these many years. When did you know that you needed to do that?
The last Mother's Day, when he tried to kill himself, and he was dying in my arms. We got to it took us about 2 hours to get into his apartment, to break into his apartment. And when we got in there, he was unconscious. We have EMS there, police officers. It's probably 20 people in the room trying to, within these last 2 hours, trying to get into the apartment. And we get in there and he's laying there unconscious, and I pick him up in my arms, and they're trying to resuscitate him and find his pulse and stuff. And I just immediately start praying over him. And they're like, "Man, we need you to move out the way so we can get to him." I'm like, I'm not moving, I'm not gonna just
Let him
stand
go
here
and let him
while
die.
he's leaving, because they found a faint pulse. And I said, God, I will vow to never stop. Even if I lose him, I'm gonna vow to never stop talking about it and trying to help. And that's when I made a decision. I said, I'm gonna scream it from the mountaintop. I'm gonna let everybody know. And it was so interesting because I did a Facebook post like a couple of days later to give everybody an update on how he was doing in the hospital. I had hundreds of people
Wow.
reach out to me telling me, I'm going through the same thing. I'm suffering, or my child is suffering, or I know somebody, or you're so brave to talk about it. I'm like, the only way we're going to help and heal and help people heal is if we talk about it. And I'm going to talk about it.
And I saw that post, and I'm rarely on Facebook, or I saw a post, and I messaged you back, and I just knew that at some point we needed to have this conversation for all those mothers that feel helpless and hopeless and don't have the kind of faith that you have had, and quite frankly don't know what to do. Because though you have the resources, everybody doesn't.
There is so much available, even if you don't have a dime. There is so much available. And you really got to network on this journey to understand what is available, even if you don't have a dime. I could tell you the greatest gift that you can give to somebody that is suffering is love. And that's free.
Absolutely.
It's free. Surround them with love.
What did you think about when you heard the story that Corey jumped off the bridge? What were your thoughts?
I called my son. When that morning, I was in Baton Rouge, ironically, that morning, and I was at my sister-in-law's house. And when I woke up, I saw messages on Facebook, alerts, like, that different family members had posted stuff. And I saw a post that her uncle had posted that they were looking, he was headed to Houston to look for her. And I called my son. And I said, Stephan, and we didn't personally know Corey. We know the family, but we didn't personally know her. I said, what do you think? What do I said, what do you think? Because I had my thoughts. He said, Mom, she probably took her life. And I said, that's the worst thought that I wanted to have. But he said, Mom, I know exactly how she was feeling. He said, I can relate to a person that at that last moment when you make that decision to do it. And he said she probably took her life. And I remember having conversations with my sister-in-law in the kitchen that morning for breakfast. And she was like, no, I refuse to believe that. I said, it's so many things that lined up to point to that she may have taken her life. And I immediately, as a mother, when I talked to my son and he gave me more of a revelation of what she may have been going through, and we don't know, we will never know. I felt like I wanted to connect with her mother and let her know that, when there are things that our kids will do that they will, and they're going through that they will never share with you. And there is absolutely nothing
Right.
you can do
Or nothing that you did wrong.
that you did wrong. That you did wrong. And I have a very, very close friend whose son took his life. And she's one of my best friends, and he took his life at 18. And it's been probably 15 years now. And it's still as painful as it was yesterday. And all I could think about was Corey's mom, of that journey of healing and, and longing and wanting to understand that I know my girlfriend is still going through. And I just feel I have complete compassion and understanding. I haven't. It's a weird feeling because I'm like, I want to reach out to her mom, but my son's alive. And it's like her daughter's gone, but my son's alive. But we're experiencing the same
Same
journey.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So what are the therapists saying about Stephan and his journey? Do they feel that he can be in a place where the depression doesn't become so overpowering?
He has to learn the tools. He has to be aware of the triggers. He has to be aware of the warning signs when it goes from just depression to wanting to end his life. He has to understand that. And he has to want to always seek help. And when depression hits really bad, he doesn't want to seek help. But he has to know the warning signs to know that it's time to seek help. My son doesn't want to take medication. He's against it. and it, to me, it's just the enemy, right? But he has to also know when it's time to open the bottle and take the pill. Because he's tried multiple times to take his life with the medication that's been prescribed to him. He has this kind of weird relationship with the medication. But now he'll say, Mom, he's like, I don't know. He told me this last week. He's like, I don't know what's going on. But all of a sudden, I just started feeling really, really depressed. Right? I get scared. And he said, but I started taking my medicine and I'm feeling better. He said, I got up, I went and worked out this morning. So he now understands the things that he needs to do to make sure he doesn't go further in that dark place.
Into the abyss.
Yeah.
And I mean, at this point, you do have to just let him live his life.
He'll be 30 in December. He'll be 30. Like, I have to let him manage his illness.
Is he living on his own?
He lives on his own. He's been living on his own for probably, he went to college. He lived in his own apartment for 4 years. He came back home for a couple of years. He got married and he's been gone. He's been on his own for about 6 years. So we're close family. He knows how to get to my front door.
Pam, thank you for sharing your story. It's just, it's a story that many people could never really understand.
Yeah.
But yet it's something that nobody really wants to talk about, but we have to. And you can't fix a thing if you don't know a thing needs to be fixed.
Right.
And mental illness is a very real issue in all communities, but Black families and Black culture has kept us from putting it out there because we felt some sort of shame and we've got to get past it. And I just want to thank you for for doing this, and thank you for being the change that you want to see, because this is how change starts.
Yeah.
It starts with being transparent.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough subject. And if I had to say anything, I'd say, if you know somebody that's suffering, shower them with love. Make sure you let them know you see them. Because the most painful thing that they can deal with is feeling like they're not seen.